Alright, so today's video we are going to talk about all the things I hate about van life. And look, hate's a strong word. I try and stay positive where I can. So let's call it things I strongly dislike. So quite often van life, you see the Instagram posts of people parked up at the beach and just enjoying these beautiful days by the beach where it's all perfect weather, but it's not always sunshine and roses. So let me take you through some of the things that really bug me. So let's start today's video outside, and for those of you wondering, I am down south with my family at the moment, so we're staying in this beautiful property and I'm in the front garden, so I've got this beautiful setting and I've been sleeping beautifully in this calm, beautiful, quiet street. But I wanted to talk about the exterior of my van and some of the things that have been happening over the last few years that I've been doing van life. So quite often I am parked up down at a beachside somewhere because I like to open the back of my van up and work from that location for the day overlooking the ocean. That's the advantages of van life. However, I think you might find that if you were to stay with your vehicle all day while it's parked in a car park, you might be surprised at how many people actually hit your car with theirs. So I have had a couple of instances of people actually hitting my vehicle with their vehicle, but I also have a lot of instances of people hitting it with their car door as I'm sitting there in the van. And, I understand that accidents happen, and that's fine, there's no point in crying over spilt milk, but it's when someone doesn't accept responsibility for their actions that really bugs me. I'm one of those people, I try and do that myself. I hope I do that majority of the time. So I have had some instances where there was a lady who parked up next to me down at the beach and I heard the car door hit my van. So obviously I stick my head out and I don't get angry straight away. I'm like, hey, because it could be kids doing it by accident, they don't think. So anyway, I stuck my head out and I'm like, her car door is actually still sitting on mine and she's not phased whatsoever. She's cleaning off sand from her feet or something. And so I've just said, hey, do you mind taking your car door off my van? Like, you've just ruined the paintwork in that spot, She's just completely ignored me. Hasn't even acknowledged me, let alone what she's done. That really bugs me. I get quite worked up about that. And so obviously she's driven off and I can see she's damaged the paintwork on my van. So that got me a bit upset. And another instance, I've been at Bunnings and I've been getting ready in the van to go inside and someone's hit, this guy. I park at the back so I'm away from other people and he's parked right next to my van. He's opened his door and he's just, with no care whatsoever, whacked my van quite hard. So then I've gotten out and he's just gone to walk off. I'm like, hey, you've just hit my van with your car door. And he's completely, once again, just ignored me and walked off. It just dumbfounds me. At least an apology would be nice, it would smooth it over a little bit. But I'll just show you some of the dings that I've got in my van. So hopefully you can see them on camera. I've got one here, here. I've got a little one here. I've got another one here, 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 here. So you can see here as someone's turned their vehicle, they've hit my van, they've scraped all the bumper, which is fine, it's a bumper, that's what it's there for, but it's damaged the paintwork a little bit there, and it has also thrown out the whack of my bumper and my light, which, I can probably fix that. I did also have someone hit the side of my van once and leave like a blue mark in there, but anyway, we buffed that out. So yeah, those kind of things really bother me because I take care of my vehicle. I love my vehicle. I want to keep it nice. And so it just means more work, things that I've got to fix up. I do actually have to go around the van and fix up some rust spots anyway, so I'll action some of those little dings. But it's just frustrating, and I really dislike it when people don't accept responsibility for their actions. If you're going to hit a car, leave a note, accept responsibility and offer to fix it, because that's just the common decency thing to do. And as most of you know, I am a conservationist at heart, and probably the one thing I dislike about me driving my van everywhere is the impact that will have on the environment with those, burning all that petrol all the time. I do actually save the planet in a lot of other ways too, because I'm not taking up any set area of land. I'm not knocking down trees to build on that land. I'm not knocking down trees to build furniture. So I don't use gas. I try and use solar for my electricity. I use very little water in comparison to what a household would use. So I'm probably the offset is probably in my favour there. But One of the things that really bugs me is if I'm sitting there and someone starts their car up, or they pull up to a car park, and they will sit there for hours with their vehicle running so that they can run their aircon. Because that's actually a waste, especially when the sea breeze is in. And I've actually had someone sit there for 4 hours running their car, and it just, oh my gosh, it really frustrates me. It's, open your windows. Because when you're down the ocean, it's very rare that you won't have a sea breeze, especially in Perth. So yeah, that really gets my goat. Some of the other things that I don't like, but it is just one of those things where it's everyone living their own life, and we're all trying to live in harmony as best we can in this world. So when I'm parked up down the beach, I obviously have my van open everywhere, and if someone lights up a cigarette next to me, then that smell will waft right through my van. And quite often down the beach, there's people having the wacky backy as well, and so that will waft right through my van as well. And I actually find that smell even more offensive. I don't know, it just triggers me. I don't like it. Even though I get people, I think because, I look like a hippie and I'm living in a van, people think that I do that, but I don't. And so I've actually had people will quite often gift it to me, and I'm like, no, I don't want it. I've had people actually leave a little, thing in a plastic bag with a box of matches on my windscreen before I woke up one morning, and it was there. So they'd really thought it out well, left it in a nice plastic bag and everything. So I just, popped it in the bin. Thank you for the thought, whoever did that, but I don't partake. So, when those things happen, I have to shut my van up, because, it's a free world, people can do these things. So I just lock all my van up, and then I just put my fan on or whatever until they decide, that they're finished doing that. And I'm sure that, I must do things that bother people as well. I think probably just by my existence bothers some people, parked up down the beach. I know a lot of people get a bit frustrated if it's a busy day at the car park, they see me stop there, but I'm in the water, I'm using the beach just like everybody else. So anyway, and I do clean up, and there's obviously, I think there's some prejudgments there that people might have in their head about, we're messy, and, maybe there are a lot of vanners that are like that, I don't know, but I'm not one of them. And quite often it can be difficult to find some peace and quiet and alone time when you're constantly living outdoors and your home is, on show to everybody all the time. So, I'm parked up at this house at the moment with the family, and they've all gone off for lunch. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a good opportunity for me to sit and just get the video done. But I'm still on a residential street, so there's still neighbours, doing stuff in their garden, or, having a chat or whatever. And even in campgrounds, I try to go for campgrounds where there's quite a bit of a distance between each campsite, because I do like my privacies, and sometimes I just want just to be on my own and have that privacy where I feel like no one's watching me. And so when you've got a house, you don't really have that problem. You can go home at the end of the day and you are in amongst walls, you've got privacy, you can have a sound level however you want it. And so it can be a bit of a challenge sometimes with that. I do find that going off grid in campgrounds is the solution, or just early mornings. So if you get up in early mornings, obviously everyone else is quite typically still asleep. So if I'm going hiking, and I always want to film when I hike, and I don't want to bother anybody else either. So I don't want to bother anyone with my drone or filming. So I try not to get other people in the camera where possible. So yeah, I try to get up, sometimes I might get up at 5 just so I can get out there and start the hike at least by 7. And at least it gives me that full day for hiking as well, but it means that I can get ahead of everybody else. I can do my filming. I can also be in peace amongst nature. And I did have a YouTuber comment once and they were like, Christy, how are you like avoiding all these people every time you go to these places? It's because I'm getting up at Sparrow's Fart to get there. And you know, early mornings, I really like my mornings to myself. I'm one of those people that likes to ease my way into the day. So I don't necessarily like to talk first thing in the morning. So I've taken to actually just making myself a cup of tea, going down the beach, and I just put my rug down and I'll meditate and I will listen to the music I want to listen to that gets me just set up for the day. I will meditate, have my tea, I can do my stretching, and then just go and stand with my feet in the water. And what I do like about that is that generally people who are down the beach in the mornings, they're kind of doing the same thing, you know, they're having their walk, and I might sometimes just get a, you know, hi, or the dog might come up and say hello, and that's fine. But I do like to be able to just sort of have my moment of peace before I start talking to anybody for the day. So that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge depending on where you are. Once again, I think, you know, campgrounds are really great for that because quite often people they won't necessarily come up to your campsite because I think there's a bit of a unspoken word about, you know, leaving people alone when they're on their campsites. So yeah. There's a new thing that's actually been bothering me lately, and that's because I have been going more off-grid this year into campgrounds, is that there's obviously the biggest issue of van life is water supply, power supply, food supply, and going off-grid, it's actually been so restful for my nervous system just to go and sit still for like a week or two. And I've just really, really loved that because I've been traveling so much over the last over 4 years that you sort of forget that your nervous system does need that rest time occasionally. So yeah, I'm finding it a bit frustrating if my water supply doesn't last or my power doesn't last or I run out of food or I want a hot shower. You know, those things are frustrating me a little bit because then I've got to move. And not that it takes much to pack up my van to move, but if I've started to do things like have a mat and some lights and all this sort of stuff, and I don't really want to leave that on my campsite when I move because I just, you know, there's people out there that just do the wrong thing. So I just try and avoid leaving it out, and even at night sometimes too. So it means I've got to pack everything up. What I've started doing is actually making changes to the van so that I can avoid those issues. So to be honest, water has never been a big problem for me. I am storing about 30 litres more on my roof now, so I think I could actually stay off grid for a couple of weeks with the water supply I have. I don't use as much water, and even for showering, like using that water bottle to shower with has just been awesome. So working out different shower systems, and yeah, if it's cold, you know, it does bug me. I want a hot shower, so I might after a week be like, no, I need a hot shower. So, you know, but during summer, that's fine. It never doesn't worry me having a cold shower or a lukewarm shower. The power has been the only thing that's bothered me, as most of you know, but I haven't actually gone off grid that much during summer yet. So this will be a real test for me this summer. I do generally park under trees a lot. I have more power storage than I did last year, or early last year. So I think hopefully this summer it'll be a bit better, and it's more just winter I really need to worry about. But those are the sort of things that are bugging me a little bit. And the weather can sometimes be quite annoying too. You know, I try to convince myself that, you know, we're here to experience all different types of weather, but there are some that really bug me. So when it's really windy, I dislike it when it's really windy. It just makes me feel irritated. And when the wind's really up and it's hot and you've got to have the van closed up because, you know, sometimes if I'm parked down the beach, there can be this really fine sand and it just gets all through your van. So you've got to, you know, clean all that out. Or you get, you know, the salt air will just land on your van, and so you've got to wash all that off. If you're, you know, up north, it could be all the dust getting through your van. So if it's a hot day and it's a hot wind coming in, that can be really uncomfortable. And at night, if it's really hot and you don't have airflow, that can be really uncomfortable. Or if it just doesn't get below, 25 degrees at night, that's going to be uncomfortable even if you do have airflow. So, you got to get your fan out with the wet flannel and just try and do lots of different things to try and make yourself feel more comfortable. But sometimes you're just not going to have a good night's sleep because of things like that. If it's really cold weather, I dislike the really cold weather, only because I like to have my van open. I like to be outdoors. That's for me the whole point of van life. So when it's cold, people keep telling me all these different things or giving me advice on things that I could do to make the van warmer. But I just want the van open. I want to be outdoors. I want to be out experiencing nature. So when it's too cold, my body just doesn't cope with it. So I don't particularly like the cold, and that's just a personal preference. I know a lot of people prefer the cold. So it's, you might really like the heat, you might really dislike the heat, you might really like the cold, really dislike the cold. But you are going to experience those extremes at some point, especially if you're traveling. But, the advantages of van life, once again, is that you follow the good weather. So whilst most of my videos are positive and showing you all the wonderful things about van life, I do like to try and keep it real as well, and these are the realities of van life, and I hope that you'll just keep them in the back of your head if you're considering the lifestyle, because I don't want to give you the perception that everything is perfect all the time, because nothing in life is like that. There's never any perfect job that's going to be amazing every day. There's never any perfect partner that's going to be perfect every day, because we're all human. There's never going to be the perfect weather every day. So, that's the yin yang of life. We couldn't appreciate the good times without the bad times. So yeah, I hope this video has been helpful. If there are any other bugbears that you find in van life, that if you live van life, please comment below, and wishing you all many happy travels.